Human design is form knowledge. It's knowledge for your body, so that your body can operate without resistance. And yet it's also a feast for the mind. The mind can dig in and can find all of this amazing nuance to watch, and this can actually help put the mind at ease. But we should never lose sight of the fact that human design is not about increasing awareness. It's not based on the premise that with increased awareness, that's all you need. It's based on surrender. It's based on giving up control of making decisions with your mind and entering fully into the experiment, which is a mechanical process. You give yourself over to this mechanical process that essentially your body comes to the decisions. And this is, of course, strategy and authority. And so I'm going to go over, an overview of your characteristics here today. But what I'm really going to try not to lose sight of is that the entire purpose of this is to align you to your strategy and authority. And in doing that, I'm going to actually be detailing what's going to pull you away from that. So I'm going to spend a bit of time looking at the not-self themes of the open centers and the not-self themes of your bridging gate 56, because that is the one bridging gate you have in your body graph. And when I'm looking at the open centers and your bridging gate, these are essentially areas where your mind is going to jump in and your mind is going to say, you don't have to wait for clarity. You don't have to wait for that strategy and authority. Just do this, right? And it's basically going to be your mind trying to pull you away from your strategy and authority. And that's going to be in gate 56, and that's going to be in the open centers. And so I'll get into that. But first I'll do an overview. I'll look at your channels and your profile, and we'll kind of cover the basics there. It's just that, I tell people about their characteristics, and they go, that's cool. But learning about your characteristics, it can be interesting. It's useful. There can be little tips, and it can be helpful. It's not where the real dilemmas in life are. The dilemmas are in the openness. The dilemmas are in the undefined centers. If you're split definition as you are, the dilemmas are in the bridging gate or gates. In your case, you just have one gate, one bridging gate, and that's gate 56. So that's where the dilemmas are going to be. But we can do the overview of the characteristics first. So looking at your channels, you have the classic manifesting generator channel, the 2034. Excuse me. You also have gate 10. 2034 by itself, when it doesn't have 10 or 57, it's really just busy in the now. Because that 34 is busy. It's busy doing. It's going to do it. And then 20 is doing in the now, right? So doing things in the now. What are you doing? I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just doing it. I'm just busy. Because you don't know because there's no 57 there, right? If somebody has 57 and 20 and 34, they know what they're doing, being busy in the now. But it has nothing to do with them. When you have gate 10 in there, it has to do with yourself. So you're busy being yourself in the now, busy doing things for yourself in the now. So with this little channel cluster, you see a lot of activity. It's just a lot of activity. This is going to be, the classic manifesting generator of spinning a bunch of plates and starting more projects than they finish, and skipping steps and having to go back over to do the steps again, and just being really busy. Then you have the 6447. That's from the head to the ajna. Your 6447 is really, it's a collective abstract channel that's about moving from confusion to clarity. So this is a design of mental activity. This is a very active mind. It's a mind that's active with all sorts of ideas, with a lot of confusion, and then periodically it has these aha moments, these epiphanies, where you get clarity. mental clarity. Now, I'm going to be talking about clarity as well in the emotional sense, so I don't want to get that confused. But essentially, it's moving from confusion to to being clear about what something is and what it means. And as an abstract process, it's going to be about returning to experiences you've had and abstracting different things from them. You may have an experience or have a lot of things happen that are very confusing, and you may have a lot of mental activity around that, and then you're able to go back and revisit that experience and get clarity about it. But this is a mental process, so remember that the mind is never going to be the authority. This is something that can be very helpful, for instance, for outer authority. The mind is amazing as outer authority. It's just not supposed to be inner authority. So having this 6447, it's about making sense of things. Something can be very confusing, and you can wrestle with it until you make sense of it. And that's fantastic. It's just remembering that it's not supposed to make decisions then. Something might be confusing, and then it might become obvious to you, and that's still not enough to make a decision. Which brings us to the last channel, the 1222, and this is the channel that actually connects to your authority, because you are solar plexus authority. You're an emotional manifesting generator. And it's the 1222 that connects you to your authority. It's interesting to me that the only conscious channel you have is that 6447, which is both conscious and unconscious. It exists on both the personality and the design side. But what this means is that essentially your entire authority and your sacral response and all of this is operating unconsciously. So the experiment is going to require that much more blind faith. It's that much more trust. It's basically trusting in a black box. Because what is unconscious, we don't have direct access to. So it's different when somebody has conscious definition, personality definition going to their authority. In that case, they can be very aware of exactly how their authority is operating. When it's unconscious, when it's on the design side, it essentially is a matter of trust. You have to trust in it, and it takes that much more surrender to that process, to just give yourself over fully to it and just let it happen automatically. But in any case, this 1222, this is an incredible channel. It's a channel with so much history. Gate 12 is the gate 90,000 years ago that underwent mutation that facilitated the dropping of the larynx and the birth of language. Human beings evolved and became able to speak. And they got language because of this mutation that occurred in Gate 12. And Gate 12 to Gate 22, that is it's a very special channel. It's where we get romance. It's where we get poetry and music. It's a very intoxicating channel. I mean, to people who don't have it, they'll find something about you very intoxicating in that you essentially lock into a certain feeling tone. And that feeling tone that you're locked into, you're going to stay in that feeling tone, and it's going to be like a frequency that you're putting out. And you can stay there for quite some time, but it's a spike lock mechanism. So you stay there until it either spikes up or it spikes down. But this is not like what you may have read about other emotional definition where they're on a constant wave. This isn't really a constant wave. It's a spike and a lock. And once it locks, it's basically, you can think of it like hydroplaning. It's just planing. It's just plateauing. It's going out in at that uniform frequency, and it's not changing. It's not getting higher or lower. And it's just putting out that frequency. But it could spike at any time. That's the interesting thing. It's ready to spike. It's ready to go up or down. It's ready to be triggered. So this is very much a channel of being triggered. And you might not realize this because, again, it's unconscious for you. And people who have emotional definition invariably don't really notice their emotional definition because they are it. It's like it's hard to notice what you are. It's the thing doing the noticing. You know what I mean? So because of that, people that have this might not realize when they're in a certain frequency or another. But that's okay. That's okay. The thing you'll realize is that, and you also have gate 55 there, you almost have the entire individual circuit. If you had 39, you would have the entire individual circuit on the solar plexus side. So what is individuality? Individuality is personal empowerment. It's not letting others interfere with you. It's being yourself, and it's being melancholy. It's melancholy when it's waiting for the change to come, when there is no change. So within this channel, there's the potential for a deep melancholy as well. But the thing to remember when you're melancholy is to not try to put a reason to it. As soon as you put a reason on it, it fixates into depression. But it's not depression, it's melancholy. It's a fertile ground of creativity. And so you don't have to put a name, you don't have to put a reason. You don't have to say, this is why. People are going to ask you, why are you sad? Why are you down? You don't have to answer that. You don't have to say anything. It's realizing that when you put a name on it, it changes it. And when you put a reason to it, it changes it. And really you're just feeling in a certain way that's actually, it's telling you that you need to spend time alone to get clarity and to wait for that creative mutation to occur. Because all individuality is mutative. By that I mean that it has the ability to change oneself, it has the ability to introduce new things into the world. This particular channel is the only individual channel that's actually designed to connect to the tribe and to connect to others. I mean, we have 2551 that connects to the tribe, and we have, but the 12 is actually a throat gate that is about mutating others. So with that 1222, there's a great capacity for you to facilitate change in others and to bring new mutations into the world. Ra-Uru-Hu, the messenger of the human design system, had gate 12, and he obviously brought a new mutation into the world with that system. So the 1222 is a really special channel. It really is. And so looking at your circuitry, seeing that you have the 6447, that's collective abstract. That's an impersonal channel. You just once experience, but it's not personal about it. Then you have 12 as individual. It takes things very personally. And then you have the integration circuitry with the 20, 10, and the 34. And that's about survival. It's a little different than individual. It's usually classified as a type of individual, but it's actually about survival. So these three kinds of circuitry are going to also tell you what your obligations are. They're going to tell you that you have an obligation to share with that 6447. And you have an obligation to be empowered and to not let others interfere with you, with your individual, and with integration to a degree. And what you don't have an obligation to do is support. So realize that the tribal conditioning is going to be very strong, with a lot of pressure to support, pressure to make bargains, pressure to make promises, conditioning pressure to be tribal, but you're not tribal. But just realize that, because whatever you're not, you have pressure to be, right? And this is how conditioning works. It conditions you to be the not self. It conditions you to be what you're not. And so realizing that you only have individual and integration and collective, that can really, that can help to just at least be aware of the conditioning effect of the tribal on you. But again, the awareness ultimately does nothing. The awareness is there to help ease the mind's surrender, if you will, so that the mind finds it easier to give in to the mechanical process of strategy and authority. So your strategy is to wait to respond. And this is the strategy of any sacral being. Being a manifesting generator, it's a little different than the pure generator, where the classic generator, once they wait and respond, that's it. The manifesting generator has a little more leeway insofar as once they've responded, they're given another chance to kind of change their mind, so to speak. Like the generator, someone asks them, do you want to go to the store? And they go, uh-huh. And they start going to the store, and it starts to rain. Well, tough luck. The generator still has to go to the store. If they don't, they're just going to be frustrated. But that manifesting generator in that same situation can be like, oh, rain? Uh-uh. And they can actually change their response at that point. Or they can keep with it. Oh yeah, rain? Uh-huh, let's do it. And so it's just saying that the manifesting generator has a little more flexibility. That they're designed to be able to kind of have a second chance with their responses. But the whole thing about response, it's really just about how you enter into things. Truly as yourself. How are you truly yourself in a situation? If you walk into a cafe and say, hey, I'd like to order a cup of coffee, you're not being yourself. You walk up and then they say, can I help you? And you go, uh-huh. And they say, what can I get you? And you say, oh, this is what I'd like. And then you're being yourself. But if you walk into a room in the morning and you say, good morning, it's going to be like fingernails on a chalkboard to people. You're not being yourself. It's interrupting them. It's interrupting their flow. That's the thing about the sacral, is that the not self-sacral people are always walking around interrupting everyone else. It's always initiating, interrupting, and not realizing that if they just stand there for a moment, the other will come to them. The other will ask them. It's like, it's impossible for other people not to. You're standing in line, and you don't say anything. Pretty soon the other person's going to. It's just the way it works. You're waiting for the bus. Instead of saying, hey, how's your day going? You just don't say anything, and pretty soon you draw it out of them. Now, there is the case where there's two generators, or two manifesting generators, or, more generally, two sacral beings, and eventually one of them is going to initiate or say something. But, in that situation, it's almost nice to just share a silence with someone until something happens. A bird flies by, or there's a loud noise, or a car comes by, or something. Then when something happens, one of you will naturally respond to that. And that's so much nicer than kind of artificially saying, hi, this is my name. What's your name? What are you doing here? Where are you from? All that stuff, that initiating stuff. That's not for generators. The manifester can walk up and say, hi, this is my name. What are you doing? And people just respond to the manifester and go, well, this is my, because that's what manifestors do. It's amazing. It's amazing. But, you're a generator. It's different. Being a manifesting generator, you have that manifesting potential, but it's only once you have responded. The way I think about it is that the manifester can change everything up. People can be asking them one question and they can be like, I don't want to talk about that. Let's talk about this instead. Or like people are hanging out and they're like, well, let's go over here. And the manifestor's like, nope, let's do this instead. Or you're just kind of in the middle of something. You're playing a game. And manifestor says, let's stop playing this game and go for a walk. That's what the manifestor does, and people go along with it. It's like they change the direction of the energy flow. They change what people are doing. They change the dynamic, and it works. Well, you can do that too once you've entered into something out of response, which is something a true generator can never do. The true generator, someone says, hey, do you want to play cards? And they go, uh-huh, and they start playing cards. There's no point they can change that. You as a manifesting generator, it's like, let's play cards. A few minutes later, I'm getting sick of playing cards. Let's go for a walk, huh? And then they're like, yeah, sure, let's do it. So, as a manifesting generator, you have leeway, but it has to come out of response. The next thing I want to talk about is authority. With your solar plexus authority, you're going to need to wait for clarity. Now, I'm sure you know this from reading about human design, but I want to just talk a little bit about what that clarity is. And so much of this is personal. I feel like human design gives keynotes that are kind of like words that you can experiment with and you can understand them in your own personal way. But at the same time, I can share some of the ways I've understood it. So, what is clarity? Well, clarity is when you've already been through one cycle or one loop about something. You've already been happy about it, then you've already been sad about it. Then you go back to being happy about it. Or you've been really enthusiastic about it and then really unenthusiastic and gone back to enthusiastic, or vice versa. Or you've been really excited and then really bored and then really excited again. Or it's given you a lot of pleasure and then caused you a lot of pain, and then you get pleasure from it again. It's when you've been through a complete cycle that you can have clarity about something because you really know what you're getting into. So you might want to make a decision, but you haven't been through that cycle yet. And this is where you need to wait. And this is the hardest thing for people with solar plexus to find to do. It's the hardest thing for them to wait because they feel like they're going to miss that opportunity. And they're at the high or the low of their wave. Even though I was saying how you have a plateau wave or a spike lock wave with the 1222, it's still a wave. It's just a wave that gets locked into a certain frequency. It's not the traditional wave we talk about. But in any case, you can imagine an artist who is at the low end of their wave and they really want to just destroy that painting. They want to just take a knife to the painting and cut it up. Don't do it. There's no truth in the now. They need to wait and essentially wait until they feel better about it. And then if they go back to feeling bad about it, by all means, destroy it. But do not destroy it at the low point of the wave, because then there's going to be regret. The next day they're going to go, why did I do that? Well, they did that because they impulsively acted out of a high or a low point of the wave. So clarity is all about waiting. Waiting is the main thing, Just needing to wait it out. And it's not easy, because there's so much in you that's saying, I'm going to miss out on this if I don't act. And really, it's kind of like the default is, if you don't have clarity, you just do nothing. So you end up starting to say no to a lot of stuff. And that can be really scary too, but this is the experiment. If someone offers you a job and you don't get clarity about it, you just say, no, I can't take that job. Because if you had clarity about it, it would be obvious. So part of it is learning to recognize when you actually are clear about something. Like, there's probably lots of things you're clear about. That's the thing. People don't realize when things that are clear are so obvious. It's so obvious. It's like, say you have like a favorite car or something. It's clear that you really like that car. Or say there's a favorite band. It's clear that you really like that band. But then say there's something you're not sure about. That's something you don't have clarity about. So clarity is this process, and it a lot of times involves surrender and letting go of an outcome, and then seeing if it sticks around after you've let go. But it's a process that takes time, and that you can't outthink it. You can't think your way around it. Clarity is going to come naturally over time. So I'm always telling people who are emotionally defined, I'm saying, just wait. You got to wait. And while you're waiting, you can be experiencing that emotion. Like, I guess you want to, it's not that you can make it faster or slower with your mind, but you can surrender to it. And surrendering to the emotion has the side effect of bringing you to clarity more quickly. So you're not actually speeding it up, because when you try to get to clarity quickly, you're going to be trying to get rid of that emotion and push it out there and discharge it, and it doesn't work. Or you're going to be pushing back that emotion and making it really repressed. But by surrendering fully to the emotional state you're in and experiencing it fully, you do reach clarity more quickly. So, your strategy and authority are to wait to respond and to basically wait for clarity. And there's going to be this battle, this internal dilemma going on between that strategy and authority, which is really to just wait. It's a lot of waiting, and it's acting out of response to things once you're clear on them. I mean, that's going to be really what it is. And then there's going to be this mental apparatus that's encouraging you to take action. So say you meet someone and you really like them. Well, you still don't have clarity about whether you want to be intimate with them or not. You really don't. You might think you do. You have the opportunity to be intimate with them, maybe on the first date even. Don't do it. It's going to mess everything up. You like them too much. You haven't got annoyed with them yet. But there's that fear, if I don't do this now, I'm going to miss out, and what are they going to think? And no, just wait and wait, and then over time, you kind of lose interest, or you start to see what's annoying about them or whatever else. But then you know what? It comes back around and you go, I really do like this person. And you have clarity. I want to be with this person. Well, then you still can't initiate. You still have to wait. And if they're a generator or a manifesting generator too, they can't initiate. So you're going to need either, some kind of outside catalyst that where then, you're both standing there and you're looking out at the trees from the balcony or whatever, and it's a full moon, and suddenly, lightning strikes or something, and then you both respond by just naturally, spontaneously holding each other and hugging each other. And out of that natural, spontaneous response, you're embracing each other and you're intimate together. That's an example of it. But being generators, you can't initiate. You can't just be like, I have clarity now. I want to be with you. It doesn't work. Something outside has to happen to trigger that. And it's so important that you enter into things correctly. When you do, everything else works great. It's the entering into things correctly. Like how you enter into it is a microcosm of that entire experience. You can be married to someone for 20 years, and that whole 20 years is, the expression of the microcosm of how you met. And everything that you are going to experience with that person, was contained in those first few moments of meeting them and how that happened. The very first things you experienced with them, and so on. So, yeah, whenever I work with people who are emotionally defined, it's mostly around patience, it's around waiting, and it's around surrendering to the mechanical process of waiting to get clarity. There's going to be a lot that's going to pull you away from that. And I'll go into that in a moment. First, I would like to talk about your profile, just to kind of cover the 2-4, since I'm not sure how much you already know about that. But I can talk a little bit about it, and then we'll get to the really juicy stuff with the not self themes. The 2-4 is the hermit opportunist. The second line is your conscious personality. And so the difference is going to be that the second line for you is going to be what you are consciously in touch with, what you're aware of, what you can watch happening as it happens, and what you identify with. So being the hermit, this is going to be, you might identify with wanting people to not interfere with your existential process of just getting to live your life, just getting to be yourself, put things into practice, not getting called out and forced to explain things too much, and not getting forced into situations where you have to contribute or you have to be a part of a decision-making process. So this is all going to be something that you're going to resonate with, and I'll go more into that in a moment. Now, the fourth line is unconscious. So that opportunist side is going to be stuff that you are not in touch with. That's going to be stuff that's happening automatically without you realizing it. And that's what's really interesting. You have the second line, which is saying, leave me alone. And then that fourth line, unconscious, is saying, I'll be your friend. Come over here, And so people are going to be drawn to that, and they're going to see that fourth line unconscious, and they're going to want to be your friend, and they're going to want to confide in you, and they're going to have all those fourth line themes with you. But in your case, it's going to be happening automatically. It's going to be happening as a surprise, and not necessarily something that you're in touch with. So typically, people don't have a problem with doing their conscious line. 2-4s realize that they need alone time, and they realize that they don't want people to get in their way and interfere with them, and they don't want people to be too nosy, and they like to have that hermit life of getting, their own ability to just live their life and live that kind of existential thing. But what a lot of second lines or 2-4s might not realize is the importance of that fourth line, that opportunist fourth line, where it is so very important to have your network. I know 2-4s who move around all the time. This is not correct. This is ignoring the fourth line unconscious. or who, are constantly uprooting. They don't realize the need for that fixed anchor. See, the second line can really live off the land. It can. It doesn't have to learn on its own. It can just kind of get by in this existential way. But the fourth line needs its network. It's like you have all these anchors. Your friends are one, your job is one, your relationship is one. You can't pull up all the anchors at once. And in fact, it's best for you. Don't start a new job. Don't leave your job until you have a new job. Don't move until you have another place lined up. You basically don't want to be a stranger. You don't want to work with strangers. You want to continually expand your network by working with people who are referred to you through your network. And again, because it's unconscious, this is not something that you're going to necessarily go, oh yeah, I'm aware of that, because it's the definition of unconscious is something that you're not aware of. You might be aware of the outcome of that. You might be able to look back and go, wow, that was really rough when I moved to that new city and didn't know anybody and didn't have any power there. I didn't have any influence there. I didn't have any opportunities there. Because that's the thing to realize. You're going to get all your opportunities through your network. So you can become aware of the effects of this, but because the fourth line is unconscious, it's different than the second line, where the second line you might really notice, everyone's telling me what I should do all the time, everyone's getting in my business, and I just tell them to leave me alone. You might notice that. But the fourth line is going to be something that's happening automatically in the background, and you're going to tend more to notice the effects of that, or notice it after the fact. Now I'll just talk a little bit about what these lines are about. The second line is a line of discernment. It's so important for that second line to be discerning. It's about discerning the right call from the other. So that second line people can get convinced they need to do the first line thing. Go to school and study hard and just put in your 10,000 hours, and you'll go from being the student to the teacher. You'll go from being the apprentice to the master. It's not how it works. Second lines can get convinced they need to do the first line thing of really learning their strengths and weaknesses, of that deep introspection. That's a first line process. It's not correct for you. And I see a lot of second lines puff out their chest, especially with an undefined ego, and they'll go, oh, I know my weaknesses. Oh, I know this, I know that. No, second lines have Achilles heels. Second lines are paper tigers. They have something where if you press them, if you push them, they will crumble. And that's okay. It's not the second line's place to be good at everything and to know where its weaknesses are. It's the second line's place to be discerning. And this is what's so important. So, I have second lines who say, oh, I'm such a great cook. And they're terrible cooks, but they're great at playing saxophone. And you ask them about saxophone, they go, oh, it's just a hobby. They don't know what they're good or bad at. Because the second line is not introspective. Introspection and discernment are different things. Discernment has to do with being discerning about others. The second line essentially has a very narrow channel. And this narrow channel is meant to receive very specific calls. And these are very specific statements of, you should do this, you should do that. And the second line is going to be told, you should do this, you should do that, thousands of times, and very few of those are going to get through. But the ones that do will have a tremendous impact. I'm talking about, being called into a completely different way of life. So it's something to realize, being a second line, you're not here to be introspective. You don't have to try to be introspective. You don't have to pretend to be introspective. A first line starts terrible at everything, and they can pick up anything and put in time and slowly get better and better and better at it over years and years and years until they become the expert. The second line starts with these amazing potentials to be amazing at so many different things, and what their life is a progressive uncovering or process of discovery of what those talents are. But they cannot discover those talents on their own. These talents have to be brought out by other people, calling to them and bringing out those talents. Now, the second line bonding strategy is going to be shyness and boldness. So this is somebody who's essentially going to be saying, go away, go away, go away. You don't really love me. You don't really want to be in a relationship with me. I'm shy. I'm not going to show you who I really am. I'm not going to show you how I really feel. Just go away, leave me alone. And they're going to have that big defense mechanism and make the other person break through that defense. They're going to make the other stick around and prove, essentially, that they really care. And that's how they bond. If somebody actually ignores you saying go away and just sticks around and keeps hanging around and keeps trying to break through that wall, and they see through your defenses, then that person is going to connect with you at an emotional and a physical and a spiritual and so on level. And this is how you have intimacy with people. They have to break down your barriers. They have to break down your walls, because you put up a big wall, and that other person is going to essentially have to prove to you, that they're willing to break that down. Now, the other side of it is that some people you're going to be shy with, some people you're going to be bold with. And that's okay. I mean, and it'll alternate where at different times, where you might be very shy with somebody that at the right moment you are bold and you kiss them, or you tell them how you really feel, or you have your kind of vulnerability that you show to them. Other times you're going to be very bold with somebody, and people have to realize, because shyness and boldness are both possibilities, it's okay for you to be shy around some people, and it's okay for you to be bold around others, and it's okay for you to be shy sometimes and bold other times. And this can be a real problem where, say you have your parents and you're shy around one of your parents and you're bold around the other. The one you're shy around is going to be like, why isn't this person opening up to me? Why isn't my kid opening up to me? There's a lot of dilemmas around the roles we play and the bonding strategies. And the thing to realize here is that shyness and boldness are both possibilities. And you're going to be both more shy and more bold at different times in your life and with different people than others who don't carry that theme. The fourth line bonding strategy is the confidant or not. And because this is unconscious, you might not even realize the need for this. But it's essentially going to be that you trust people when they confide in you. And when you don't trust them, and when they don't tell you how they're really feeling and what they're really thinking and what's really going on, basically when they don't tell you everything they would write in their journal, you've lost intimacy. And that's a difficult thing for some people, to have that level of honesty. The fourth line confidant, it's literally to the point where your partner, could be attracted to someone else, and them telling you about that attraction will actually bring you both closer. But the thing is that 2-4 might not like it. The 2-4, because they have that unconscious fourth line, might not realize how important it is to be confided in. They might not realize how important it is to really have that trust where you're friends first, and where your lover, where your romantic partner is telling you everything they would tell a friend. That is actually very healthy for you, and that is correct for you. But the mind and the ego and all this stuff can get involved. And it can be, that not self-ego, of feeling wounded, of feeling, of having low self-esteem, for instance, if your romantic partner tells you they're attracted to someone else. That actually builds trust. So that's the thing to realize with that fourth line unconscious, is how important it is for you and your partner to really have that trust. So the 2-4, as it works together, is essentially someone who is going to be living and putting into practice their life, and really, even we could think of it as playing or enjoying just being alive in a playful sort of state, where they're not really here to investigate or to learn about things. They're not really here to test things out. They're not really here to universalize or to, become totally uniquely themselves the way a sixth line might. They're here to live their lives, and to really put things into practice, or to live out their natural talents, and being natural in their own skin, and being natural, and really discover what their talents are. Because the second line always thinks they know. I've talked to so many 2-4s who think they can list all their talents, and they can't, because the second line is not introspective. They don't know what their talents are. They think they know, but you need other people to tell you what you're actually good or bad at. But this is like kryptonite for second lines because they say, leave me alone. People are constantly telling me what I should do, and I can't stand it. And so it's really an interesting one where you're kind of basically here to live your life and then to be very discerning and to let in only very specific calls from other people where they call to you and they say, you should do this. And those very specific people that you let in will essentially draw you out of your shell and transform you from a depleter to a nourisher. So you're no longer just living off the fruits of the labors of others, and you're actually nourishing them with your own productions and so on. And then with that fourth line, unconscious, you're building your influence, you're building your power. You're getting more influential, you're getting more powerful. You're setting trends, people are imitating you, people are copying you, and you're providing opportunities for people, and you're getting opportunities from them. But that's the thing to realize. With that fourth line unconscious, if all your friends work in the steel mill, you're only going to get a job at the steel mill. I know a 2-4 who's a barista, been a barista for years. Well, all of that person's friends are baristas. That person's housemates are baristas. Guess what? That person does not want to be a barista anymore, but there's no chance, of getting other opportunities because all the opportunities that come are for different cafes because that's what that network is. So be cognizant of your network. The kind of people you spend time with, the kind of people in your network are the opportunities you will have in this life, period. So if you want to be a therapist, hang out with therapists. If you want to be a firefighter, hang out with firefighters. Whatever the job is, you need to be around those people. You need to be friends with those people. You need to really exercise that network because the only opportunities you're going to get are through that network. You don't want to get opportunities from strangers because they might sound good, but then, something bad might happen from it because with that fourth line, it's going to be too open to different kinds of people and so on that might not be correct for you. So the second line really needs to practice the discernment. You can rely on the emotional clarity that you get from your strategy and authority to determine the correct calls you get from others. And that's really the core of it right there, of how the 2-4 works. The other thing is that 2-4s, the second line can teach, but it teaches as a guru. The first line is the real teacher. So I know a second line who's a teacher who actually teaches how to make lattes and how to do, this is the second line I mentioned, who works in the coffee industry. And I was asking this person, how do you teach? Because I'm curious, because the first line is going to explain everything. And the second line person said, oh, I just show them. And some people get it and some people don't. And if they don't get it, I show them again. And I just keep showing them again and again. Well, this is how the second line does it. It basically shows. It's a guru more than a teacher. It's going to demonstrate it. People can learn by osmosis. They're not going to learn by explaining, step by step. So it's something to realize also so that you don't try to be a first line. So many second lines are out there trying to be first lines. They're trying to be hunters when they're really gatherers. They're trying to pursue people in romance when they really should be the wallflower shyly standing on the side. That's the thing. The second line is not a hunter, but so much of the conditioning says to be like that first line, to go out there and to learn and to study and to pursue and do all these things and to teach in a very traditional way. No, the second line shows. That's what it does. So it's just something to keep in mind. There's a very different way of operating when you're a second line. And it's not important for you to do the things that work for other people. It's important for you to do what works for you. And finally, I'd like to talk about the not self themes. This is really the crux of it. Because this is the stuff where you're essentially going to have your strategy and authority. You're waiting to respond and waiting to trust that emotional authority, the clarity that comes out of it. And then you're going to have the not self. And because your split definition, the not self is going to primarily operate through the bridging gates. And then secondarily through the open centers. Well, you only have one bridging gate. So that makes it very simple. And what that means is that at the very core, the foundation of your not self is going to be that bridging gate 56. The feeling that it's missing. That 56 is missing. And if only you had that, everything else would work out. So, what can we say about gate 56? I always think of the word stimulation. Gate 56 is in the throat. And actually, it's interesting, I just did a reading for someone else who had the same bridging gate, so it's very fresh in my mind. Essentially, what I came to is that when you have this as a bridging gate, you're going to feel like if only you were more stimulating to others, then you could avoid frustration. If only you were a more interesting storyteller. If only you were better at expressing your ideas. And so the entire not-self mental process is going to be organized around making decisions that maximize your ability to be interesting and stimulating and to tell stories and to express your ideas to others. So a job's going to come along and they're going to ask if you want the job. And instead of waiting for that emotional clarity and that process of the emotion of the solar plexus, it's going to be the mind that jumps in and says, well, is this job going to allow me to express my ideas? Is this going to help me? Is it going to give me the ability to be stimulating to others? Is it going to give me stimulation? Is it going to, it can work both ways. Is it going to stimulate me, or is it going to help me be stimulating and express stimulating things to others? And if so, you're going to say yes and take that job without waiting for the clarity. So we have to realize that this bridging gate is the deepest, strongest, most intense underpinning of the entire not self. Now, there's other ways of thinking about it too. I mean, these can be deconstructed in so many different ways. So the 56 is actually called the Wanderer. So it's about it's an experiential gate, so it can also be about getting new experiences, and it can be about literally wandering to accumulate new experiences that are stimulating. So in that sense, it could be you're offered the job, and you think, well, is this going to be boring, or is it going to be exciting? Because boredom and excitement are part of the experiential stream. They're part of the abstract collective circuitry. And if it's exciting, you'll say yes. Because there's this whole idea, if only I can have this thing, then I can avoid frustration. Right? It's all about avoiding frustration. It's all about, at the core level, I can avoid frustration if I get enough stimulation. I can avoid frustration if I'm stimulating enough to others. I can avoid frustration if I have enough life experiences that I'm not bored and that I have good stories to tell. So, and because it connects to gate 11, the gate of ideas, it's about expressing ideas. It's part of the memory stream, so it can be that there's a lot of ways to deconstruct this. It's basically about the verbal expression of ideas, the verbal expression of lessons and abstractions you've taken. I realize the reason they call the circuitry abstract circuitry is because you're abstracting different things from past experience. So the whole idea is here that you want to live a life, the not self is trying to live this life that gets these experiences so it can go back over these experiences and abstract different life lessons from them and abstract different ideas from them or have different ideas about them and then express those things. And there's a feeling that something is lacking, that you're not stimulating enough, that you're not getting enough stimulation, that you haven't had enough life experiences. So you're always wanting more, right? And the fact is, it's not lacking. It's not. This is the not self-conditioning. The not self-conditioning is there to make you feel like something's lacking, and if only you had it, then you would be free from frustration. But it's not true. The only thing that really makes you free from frustration is following your strategy and authority. You'll always be frustrated if you make a decision before you have clarity about it. So what really is going to help you is the deconditioning from this bridging gate, and then it becomes a point of wisdom. So, that's the interesting thing, right? The bridging gates and the undefined centers start as the deepest dilemmas in life and the greatest suffering in life. And then you can actually work through them and they become sources of wisdom. So, just to talk a little bit more about 56, it's the gate of the seeker. It's wanting to seek, it's wanting to find things, but it's really just it's experience and stimulation for its own sake. That's something that they say in the definitive book of human design, which is a really nice reference book, and it's nice sometimes to go through these. And I would encourage you to read about Gate 56 and the different books you can find, and realize that you're going to be looking for this stuff. You're going to be looking for experience. You're going to be seeking, and there's going to be this theme of being the seeker, the wanderer, of looking for stimulating experiences and wanting to provide those experiences to others. I will take you on an adventure. I will provide an exciting experience for you. Feeling like if you do that, then you can avoid frustration. Like I can avoid frustration as long as I have enough excitement and provide enough excitement to others. So again, it's really the crux. I mean, it gets to the extreme point where you can find people whose entire lives are organized around this one thing. That's all they're looking for. You find somebody whose bridging gate is 52, stillness. They're meditating for 4 hours a day. Their entire life is focused around finding stillness. Or their bridging gate is 16. Their entire life is focused around developing skills. So it's shocking to see and I can't overstate how important this is. I'm probably understating it right now because even though I'm really emphasizing it, I mean, this is something that I would encourage you to just continually return to and meditate on and explore and notice all the different levels of that gate 56, the different ways it can express itself in your life. Because this is going to be the deepest, deepest, deepest not self-conditioning for you. I mean, this is the core right here. It's like you have two decision-making processes. The mechanical, physical process in your body that comes to clarity over time. And then the mental, not self-decision-making process that is optimized for stimulation. It's optimized for seeking and wandering and searching and getting new experiences and being stimulating to others and being able to share your experiences and your ideas and the life lessons you've got from them. And it's going to be making decisions based on that. Will this job give me that? Will this relationship give me that? Will this place give me that? Will that, someone asks you if you want to go somewhere. It's going to be that not self mind saying, is this going to be stimulating? Is this going to be a good story later? Is this going to be, is it going to help me do ideas? Someone's going to offer you a job where your job is to brainstorm, right? And instead of waiting for the mechanical process of clarity to arise, is this going to be like, hell yeah, I want to brainstorm. I get to express my ideas to you? You mean I get to develop and work on how to express my ideas? Of course I'm going to say yes to that. And that's the temptation, is that the closer something is to your dream or ideal goal, exemplified by having gate 56, the more you're going to have a strong urge to say yes to that. And the further away it is from that, you're going to have a strong urge to say no to that. And these yeses and nos are going to be completely dependent on how close it is to your fantasy of being able to express your ideas and have a lot of stimulation and have a lot of excitement and have a lot of new experiences and so on. And that's not what brings you satisfaction. That brings you frustration. The only thing that gives you satisfaction is waiting long enough to make a decision. You have that clarity. And so somebody offers you this amazing job where you get to be an idea person and you get to express your ideas and travel and have all this new stimulation all the time and tell stories and all these gate 56 themes. And if you wait for that emotional wave, you might be really excited about it, and then you might realize there's a lot of negatives, a lot of shortcomings, a lot of reasons that wouldn't be correct. And if it comes back around to being excited, then say yes, by all means. But if it stays in that down wave and it doesn't come back, then you dodged a bullet. because then you just say, no, I have clarity that I don't want that. Or you just don't have clarity at all, and you say no because you don't have clarity. So the default is no. So that's what it's really about. It's about the dilemma between being pulled toward making decisions with the not self versus making decisions with that mechanical process. And the not self decisions for you are going to be, again, focused around gate 56. How close is it to gate 56? Well, then you'll say yes. Now, here's the interesting thing. Once you have stopped making decisions with gate 56, it becomes the greatest source of wisdom about how to have a successful relationship, how to have a satisfying relationship, how to have a good, healthy, productive relationship with someone. Because split definitions are here to teach the rest of us, the single definitions, the triple split, and the quad splits, and the no definition reflectors, how to relate. Only the split definition really has the potential to learn how to relate. And what they become experts about, these split definitions in relationships, are very specific things. And in your case, you're going to become an expert on gate 56. Because once that you stop making decisions with it, you can observe it, and you can learn all about it and all of its nuance. And I can't do it justice because I'm a single definition and I don't know about this gate 56 as a split. But I can say that, once you have gained wisdom about it, someone might come to you and they might have a relationship problem and they might say, impart your wisdom to me about relationships. And you might impart the wisdom of gate 56 and say, well, relationships need to have a narrative. You need to be able to tell stories to each other. You need to have a good memory and be able to look back on experiences you've had together. You need to have adventures together. You need to have enough stimulation together, and so on, right? You'll know in detail and in the nuances of it exactly what aspects of gate 56 are very important because relationships need all sorts of things to be successful, all sorts of things. And split definition folks like yourself actually learn about specific things that are very helpful for others in their relationships. And they have to do with those bridging gates. Now, the last thing I'll do, just to finish up here, will be to talk about your three open centers, the ego, the spleen, and the root. And I'll just really briefly say, because this is a secondary theme for the not self for you, that these are going to be not self deconditioning, or these are going to tie into that not self decision making process. So in addition to feeling like you can avoid frustration if you get enough stimulation, you might also feel like you can avoid frustration if you prove yourself, the undefined ego, if you don't let go with that undefined spleen, and if you hurry up with that undefined root. So the question to ask yourself in these cases, am I trying to prove myself? Am I holding on to things that aren't good for me? Am I in a hurry? And you can look at the specifics of them with the gates. And I'll just give you a little formula here, and I'll wrap it up, and I'll let you continue with exploring this formula. So, first of all, the ego is the strongest of your not self themes. They go in a hierarchy. The spleen is the second strongest, and the root is the least. So the root is going to be like an outside layer of the onion. When people see you, what they're going to see with the not self is not that ego underneath it all, nor even the spleen. They're going to see the root. They're going to see somebody who's in a hurry, who has a lot of energy to be in a hurry to get things done quickly. But what they're not going to realize is underneath that, you're in a hurry because you'll feel like you're a good person if you get things done quickly. Or you can prove yourself if you get things done quickly. You can prove your value and so on. And there's actually a goal. Now here's the formula I'm going to give you. When you have an undefined center, the activated gate or gates become the goal of that center. That's the first part of the formula. So you have gate 21 activated in the ego. Well, 21 is control. So the goal here is control. It could be self-control, like when you have a New Year's resolution where you vow to quit cigarettes or you vow to go to the gym. It could be control of others. It could be control of a workplace. It could be control of a home environment. A lot of times it's just self-control, honestly. But whatever it is, it's about control. So there's going to be that goal of control, and there's going to be a feeling, if I hurry up, that root, undefined root, then I can keep control, and then I can avoid frustration. And you can even connect it to that bridging gate 56. If I can keep my self-control, then I'll get the stimulation I need, and then I can avoid frustration. You can also see that with your 44 in the spleen. That's going to be the goal of your undefined spleen. It's going to have to do with management of resources. It's going to be tribal. It's going to be holding on to resources that aren't good for you, or holding on to management positions that aren't good for you, or things like that. Now, the second part of the formula I'm going to give you is when you have a channel completely open. So you see in that ego, you have 2551 completely open. This is a theme of denial and blame, and also feeling like you have to do it on your own. So with that 51, that's the courage to jump into the unknown. It's courage, right? And with that 25, it's about innocence. And so you might say, I don't have a problem with courage. Everyone else is afraid. I don't have a problem jumping in the unknown. Everybody else is afraid, right? Or you might say, I have to jump into the unknown all by myself and nobody's there to help me because they're not innocent. Everyone else has ulterior motives. Nobody else is innocent enough. I don't have people that have pure motives around me. So you can see how when it's a completely open channel, it can be deconstructed in a number of different ways. It can be deconstructed both as denial and blame, like I don't have this problem, other people do, or it can be deconstructed as I have to do this thing and no one's there to help me. And the same with the 4037 there. You see that 4037, that's going to be about working for others and loyalty and trust. And so a big part of that's going to be, I don't have a problem trusting others. Others have a problem with trust. They have trust issues. And I'm a trustworthy person. It's other people that can't be trusted. Stuff like that, right? I don't have the support I need. Things like that, because it's tribal. So when you have those completely open channels, you have an issue there. Like, basically, the 21 wants to be in control, and it wants to have stamina, because it takes a lot of stamina to stay in control. The 51 is courageous, and it needs really a lot of guts. The 26 is about nerve and kind of selling yourself and getting up in front of everybody and kind of being a big ego and selling yourself. And then the 40 is really going to be working hard for others and having the capacity. Really, it's about capacity. So the worst thing you can tell someone with undefined ego is you don't have the stamina, you don't have the guts, you don't have the nerve, and you don't have the capacity. It's basically the worst thing. You just go through those 4 gates right there, and that's it. You can see with 26 that you have 44 pointing at it. So this is the last part of the formula that I'll give you. In that case, you're going to feel like something is lacking, just like with a bridging gate. You're going to feel like you don't have enough of that 26. If only I were better at selling myself to the tribe, then I would be satisfied. If only I could improve myself at how I sell myself to the tribe, then I would be satisfied. So those 3 parts of the formula, you look at the gate 21, just to recap, you have a defined gate and an undefined center. This is going to be the goal of that undefined center. I have to keep in control. If I can only keep in control, then I can be satisfied. Then you have the totally open channels. That's where you have the denial and blame, and also feeling like you're totally on your own to do it. Like, see how you have totally open 4816 over in the spleen? Well, 48's it's all about solutions to problems, and 16 is about skills. That could first be, I don't have problems holding on to solutions that aren't good for me. Other people do. But then after that, it could also be, I have to hold on to these solutions that aren't good for me because nobody else has the skills. Everybody else is unskilled, and nobody else can really help me find something better. So you can see when it's a totally open channel, you have denial and blame, and also this feeling of doing it on your own, because whatever is on the other side is missing. With that 4037, the 37 on the other side seems to be missing. That's affection missing in your life. With that 5125, the 25 on the other side is missing, so that's innocence missing. The feeling that other people aren't innocent, that they have ulterior motives. With the 4816 I just mentioned, well, the 16 is missing. You feel like other people don't have the skills, and so on. Now, of course, this is only the case when you have undefined centers. It's very different when you're reading for the defined centers. But I'm just giving you that formula so you can look at your undefined centers and you can kind of do this formula. And you can try to deconstruct and understand how that works. And so essentially, if I had to synthesize it all together, it would be I can avoid frustration as long as I have enough stimulation, as long as I prove and improve myself and am able to stay in control, as long as I hold on tightly to resources, and as long as I'm in a hurry. And so that's what you're up against. That is what is on the other side, the mental decision making, not self, that is essentially drawing you into making decisions without waiting for clarity. And when you wait for clarity, you find true satisfaction because you can be satisfied with yourself that you waited long enough to have clarity. And whatever happens, you know that you didn't impulsively make a decision. And you know that you had the truth before you made the decision. But when you follow that not self, it's going to promise you that you can avoid frustration, but you'll just end up getting more and more frustrated. So that's really the crux of it right there. And that's the point of all this information. Human design is an amazing feast. You can study it for years and it just keeps going like layers of an onion. But at the core of human design, which is also at the surface, it's so funny. I mean, this is an overview reading. But at the surface of human design is the same as at the core of human design it's all about strategy and authority. And it's all about giving yourself over and surrendering to that mechanical process, trusting in that process, experimenting with it, and seeing what happens. I wish you all the best in your journey.